We're starting with Motion, just by opening Motion up and setting our presets up to be broadcast HD 720 at 2997 frames per second. We're going to be working with a 2-minute song, so I have it set to seconds 120, and I will click Open or Create. At this point, we are in our project window. My library is here. I'm going to switch to Inspector and notice that the project has the settings 29.97 and 120 seconds for our timeline. If you need to increase that, you can do that by clicking on the project inspector window and changing the properties here that allow you to change the length or time of your project. We're going to start by importing the audio, so I'm going to just move the window off to the side and find my media and just grab it and throw it into the space. At this point, we're not seeing the audio here, although we do see it here. I'm going to click on this little button icon to make the timeline for the audio visible. And I'm going to scooch the audio that's a little longer than 2 minutes over so that we have something that we're seeing. And move our window back. Now, our audio is also, some of the leveling is available in our audio tab here, so we can actually increase or decrease the sound. But we're mostly going to be working with layers. The next part we're going to do is, currently we're on the selection tool. I'm going to switch over to the circle tool by clicking and holding, and I'm going to create a circle in the middle of our workspace. Now currently our workspace is set to 100, but I'm going to put it on fit so that we can actually see the entire video window. And now I'm going to have created a circle, and you can see the circle is created in our group called circle. I'm going to go back to our move tool, and this allows us to move our circle over. And notice that because our playhead was at the beginning, the circle was created at the beginning. If we had our playhead here and created a circle, I will go ahead and show you how that works. Holding the shift key down to create a perfect circle, you'll notice that the actual circle itself is created at a different location. This is circle 1 versus circle. So I'm going to undo that. We're going to go back to our selection tool, and currently we have a circle and we have music. Not much happening so far. What we'd like to do is take this circle and actually have it controlled by the Midi keyboard, which is what we did in class. So I'm going to start by selecting the circle, and I am going to unhide the toolbar. Normally your toolbar will be unhid, so you'd have these buttons up here. We're going to select behavior, parameter, and then Midi, and we'll notice right away when we do that that the circle all of a sudden has a little gear icon, and our behavior panel opens up, and we are controlling, our control type is set to learning. That means that if I move a lever or a note on the Midi keyboard, which is currently obviously below me, it will actually learn which note that is and actually map that to this Midi controller. So I'm going to set it back to learning. I'm going to hit a note, and notice that now you can actually see my hand hitting that note, and if I hit it lightly, the number becomes less. If I hit it hard, the number gets bigger. So it's mapped between 0 and 100, or 0 and 1. We need to apply that note data to something. So in this case, I'm going to select apply to the property transform, and I'm going to actually apply it to the scale of that circle. Now when I hit the note, you'll notice that the scale increases by 100 pixels or something like that. So in order for this to be more pronounced, we can increase the scale. I'm going to set it to 4, which seems like the most, but it's actually not. If you click and hold on the number, you can go higher than the number 4. So now we've got a massively big circle that's actually working. That circle is white. I'm going to click on the shape inspector. We're selecting the circle. I'm going to change that fill color to like red, and now we have a big red circle. Finally, I'm going to go back to properties, and I'm going to select the blend mode, and I'm going to go from normal, which is just a normal red circle, to something like add. That means that this color will add to whatever other color it overlaps. So far so good. I'm going to close this circle up, open this so that we can see it, and you can see the gear icons there. And I'm going to call this A because it is note A on the keyboard. So now I have the note controlling the scale of that circle. I can left click and select duplicate, and that'll duplicate, so now I have 2 copies of that circle. And if I move this over, you'll see that they are now both on the same note, and they have the same color, and they have the same Midi property. What I'm going to do is open up that copy, select the Midi, and I'm going to go to learning so I can select a different note. So now I just pressed the B button, or the B note. So I have A, and then I've got B, A, B, and you can kind of see that. I'm also going to change the color, so maybe make this one blue. Now I have a blue circle and a red circle. And then finally, I'm just going to label this by double clicking, selecting B. And now I have that labeled as B. And you can see if I bring this closer in and let it overlap, I've got A and B. And so when they both overlap, I'm holding the keys, the notes down. You can see that that overlap is caused because the properties are set to add. Let's do this one more time. Duplicate with the right mouse button. Call this C. Open it up, select our Midi controls, go back to a learning configuration, and now I'm going to select the C note on the keyboard. You can see that working. I'm going to scooch that over, go to the shape, change the color maybe to green. Now I've got A, B, C, and you can kind of see that I'm actually playing these 3 notes using just the keyboard, just the Midi keyboard. So this is how you can map notes to properties. The next thing I'd like to do is actually select this entire group, because this group holds all 3 of those shapes. And I'm going to now use the slider to control the opacity, the overall, how bright or invisible this group is. And so I'm going to, again, go to Properties, Parameter, and Midi. And this time, I'm going to move a controller, a slider. So one of the sliders on my Midi keyboard, it goes up and down, up and down. I'm going to map this time, instead of to the scale, I'm going to select blending opacity. Now this is now modifying the opacity of this entire group, but you notice nothing is happening. And that's because when the value is 0, the 0 is being added to the property of 100%. So 0 plus 100% is still 100%. So by starting with 0 under properties, now if I actually move the slider, you can kind of see that that becomes more or less visible for that entire group. So using that slider and those notes, I can actually fade them in and out with no problems. So that's our first set of things that we did in class. I'm going to create a new group by selecting Add Object Group and turn off this other group, which is our circles. I'll just call it circles. This way we can be focused on our new group. This group, we're going to be adding multiple videos to our scene here. And we're going to be controlling the behaviors of those using our controller keyboard. So I'm going to move this aside, find a video that I like. By the way, we haven't hit play yet, so that our playhead is still at the beginning of the timeline. I'm going to move my video into the space, and you'll see that that video actually shows up. It's great. I'm going to make it a little bit, I'm going to actually scale this down to 25% so I can see the outside here. And I'm going to move this and scale this video so it fills up the screen. Okay, so now I have my Speed Racer video. Currently there's no controls for it. It is, move this back out here. I would like to be able to fade this video in and out just using a controller. So it's very simple. We select the video, go to Add Behavior, Parameter, Midi. I use the second slider that I haven't used yet, and now I'm mapping that to the property, blending, opacity. And now I go back to properties, and like before, I have to start with the opacity at 0 so that I can zoom this in and out. Okay? And that's pretty much what we're going to do for the next 3 videos. So I'll bring a new video in. This is called Jellyfish. Notice how the jellyfish starts with the word jellyfish by scooching the jellyfish video over to where the words are gone. It will start at that point here. And now you can scrub through and you'll see that jellyfish video. And I'm just going to stretch it so that it deforms it but fills up the entire window. And do the same thing as before. Now, one thing you can do is just move this. Well, let's go ahead and do that. Just behaviors, parameters, Midi, and use my third controller. Now, notice what's happening here. I'm moving the controller and perfect. And I'm going to map this property to opacity again and go back to behaviors and change the opacity to 0. So I've got that one, I've got speed racer, and if I turn the circles on, I got the circles, all 3 sliders available. Now, I would love for these 2 videos to combine in a way that's more interesting than just normal. So again, I can use the same technique as before. I could go to properties and select the blend mode and do something like difference for the jellyfish video. So the jellyfish is on top, but if I pull the speed racer video and then I pull the jellyfish in, you'll notice how this interacts in a different way than just regular a regular blend mode. You can kind of see that. And by the way, if I hit the space bar, you'll see how that video is actually working. So you can actually pull these things in and out using the levers. So let's do one more. Just hit the space bar to stop, move my playhead to the beginning of my scene, and add one last video. In this case, it's a Robotech video. Just put it here, make it larger. And if it doesn't, you can kind of see that it's not filling up the entire space. It'll just stop after a certain point. That's because it's not a 2-minute video. So if you want this to be 2 minutes, make sure you have a 2-minute video. I will then add the behavior, parameter, Midi, move the slider, and map it finally to opacity. And go to properties, lower the opacity, and change the blend mode to something different. Maybe I will try exclusion. So now I've got this, and you'll see how this works in conjunction with the other video. So this is 3 videos. You can kind of see how they work all together. And this is my group video. Finally, some of the last things we did in class were to actually animate while playing the video using the record button. It's very much like a latch button where it writes the automation data that you're moving from the MIDI controllers to all the video, and so you can in essence create something that can be actually played. Now we can click this button so that we can see just this screen. You can left click here to hide the toolbar, and in essence now you have something, if you select fit, where you can actually be bringing stuff in and out. So you could just be animating or working with this footage in real time while something else is happening, like your music is playing. But if you would like to create a video that can be then exported with all the timing that you have, what you're going to need to do is hit the record button. Now once you hit the record button, it's going to start the animation recording, and it will save every single thing you do. So you have to be careful to turn this back off, and my suggestion would be to go ahead and file, save this project first beforehand. So project without recording. And now don't save this project again after you start recording, so that you can open this project up and re-record if you have anything bad happen during the recording session. So I'm going to again make this a little smaller so you can see what's going on. I'm also going to, and by the way, notice that when we have the videos brought in, the actual sound for each of the videos is also kind of like overriding your main sound. You can turn that off here, or you can go to your audio tab and turn off the sound here. So now that I've got the sound off, I'm going to open this back up. Now here's where we're going to actually be animating. This is where the data is going to be. So if you turn these 3 buttons on, you will see the animation data for whatever you're doing. So for instance, your notes, you will see, if you click on the Midi, you'll see the animation data here, or you'll click on this Midi and you'll see the animation data for that note, and so forth. So I'm going to move my playhead to the beginning. I'm going to click record, and then I'm going to record something on screen. I'm going to make sure everything is brought down to 0. There we go. And hit record, and then the space bar to start. And I'm going to bring in slowly the things and just start recording. And now I'm going to bring in some video in the background. And now I'm going to bring in a second video. Bring in the other one, and just recording how these videos work. I'm going to hit the stop button, and you'll see that the record button is still on. So no matter what I do now, if I move back, I can re-record or overwrite my things. So at this point, I'm going to turn this off, and then I'm going to show you the MIDI data for the A note. So this is the note A, and here's the data. These are the animation points that you see right here. If I zoom in, you can kind of see how many times I hit that note and how hard I hit it. The same thing for the videos. I'm going to open the videos up and show you the Speed Racer video. And there's the data. So I slowly moved the controller in here and then moved it out here. And so you can kind of see all the values here. Now you can always do some smoothing here. So reduce the keyframes so that they become a little smoother. You can kind of see how that smooths stuff up. And it'll make the animation that you created a little smoother if that's what you want. If you're happy with what you've got, great. If not, don't save this, close and hit don't save, and just open it back up, and you can re-record into it. Otherwise you have to go physically into each one of these and remove all the animation data by hand, everything you clicked on, right? But if you're happy with what you've got and you're ready to export this as a finished video, you can kind of see the animations happening here. You can go to File, you can kind of see the animation there. Go to File, or go to Share, Export Movie, and select H.264. You can either do just a video or video and audio. It'll put your audio in there. Just make sure you've got everything turned off. And click Next. And I'll just call this Test Project. Put it on my desktop, and that's it. And that's how you can create something that you can VJ to with your music that's a little more organic than doing animation in a different way.